All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us for the second round of public meetings related to JTA's TOD pilot around the U2C. Tonight we'll be discussing station area frameworks for the Shipyards, Jacksonville Regional Transportation Center, and Rosa Parks. My name is Alexander Traversa, and I'm a planner with the JTA in the Planning and System Development Department. In my role, I do all varying scales of transportation projects, as well as sustainability and transit-oriented development planning. And with me tonight, I have Josh Turner from the project team with WSP.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Josh Turner. I'm a lead urban designer with WSP. We're based out of the New York City office. So excited to be here tonight to talk about the work that we've done to date.
So during the meeting, you'll have the ability to engage with the presenters by commenting in the comment box located on the right-hand side or below the video on your screen, depending on the device. You can also dial in or email the email address listed on the public input page. So the format of this presentation and meeting will be a sort of virtual charrette where we'll be doing some live sketching. And we're really trying to get feedback on what type of development you would like to see in your neighborhood or these neighborhoods that we're presenting. So throughout the presentation or at specific times, depending on the site, we'll ask for your feedback on kind of what you feel should be in the community that we're kind of on the fly designing. You'll also have the ability to provide feedback via the survey questions below the video. It's a map-based question. In the top right corner, you'll see an add point option. This will open a scrollable drop-down in which you can select various land uses and then drop them on the map and provide comments as well. Throughout the presentation, we'll do our best to juggle the comments as well as the map pins as Josh is sketching. And we'll get everything integrated. So if you have any further feedback after the meeting, we ask that you visit our project webpage at u2ctod.jtafla.com. And from there, you can submit questions and comments on the study page. So we just want to give you a brief background of kind of the status of the project and what we've done to date and where we're going. And then we'll dive into some of the frameworks that we've discussed and come up with as a team, and then get your feedback and your thoughts on kind of what you think should be in these frameworks. From there, we'll cover the next steps of the project and give you an update on the timeline. Well, we hope you enjoyed that video showcasing some of the system and some of the corridors that we're analyzing as part of this project. So just to give you a brief overview of the timeline of the project, we kicked off earlier this year in January. We started off with an existing conditions analysis of all of the corridors. This included a half-mile area around the proposed U2C and the proposed stations. From this, we utilized the data we collected as well as on-site site visits and our first round of public engagement to develop a TOD desirability and readiness assessment. And this allowed us to select a number of stations to be further advanced into a more in-depth framework development. So those are the stations that we're covering in this round of public engagement now in August. As we move forward, we'll continue to develop the 6 selected station areas through kind of October timeline. And then we'll begin task 5, discussing kind of the implementation framework, what specific things need to occur for these visions to come to fruition. So we'll be likely coming back for a 3rd round of public engagement here towards the end of the year and wrapping up the project in early 2021. So the scope of the project surrounds the Ultimate Urban Circulator, or U2C program. This program is designed to take the existing Skyway system, shown here on the map with the solid points. Those are the existing Skyway stations, and expanding it to a 10-mile system into surrounding neighborhoods. This project is a result of the Skyway Modernization Program back in 2016, as well as various planning exercises, including the Transit Concept and Alternatives Review, both the first and second iterations of those, one focusing on the conversion, the second focusing on the extensions. And what this does is it allows the Skyway to connect to these, or the future of the Skyway to connect to these surrounding neighborhoods and leverage multiple public investments. And with this, the goal is to incorporate transit-oriented development. As many of you may know, the goal is to convert the mode from a monorail system to an automated vehicle network. And so as we dive into these frameworks, we really want you to consider, what is TOD, or transit-oriented development, and really think about kind of all the features that make a TOD. So TODs are a mixture of housing, office, retail, and other amenities that create a live, work, and play environment. And it's a more sustainable form of development, really focusing on infill development, as well as creating a safe environment for all travelers, including those walking or biking, as well as transit users. So as we consider this, we'll talk about accessibility, mobility, and sustainability. So with that, all of these stations are surrounding proposed U2C stations. These have been developed in high-level planning exercises and are not, definite station locations. If there's any other questions related to the specifics of the U2C program, we ask that for the sake of time tonight, we'll be doing a lot of sketching and planning related to the station areas, that you visit our project page at u2ctod.jtafla.com, and under the resources tab, you can find frequently asked questions. And that should answer a number of your questions. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out. But I will do my best to address them in a timely manner tonight. And then again, the purpose of this is really to improve mobility. Transit-oriented development has the opportunity to create more accessible areas for all users by creating nodes throughout the transit network. This will also lead to development of the economy or the economic opportunity in the area, allowing for this community to be more sustainable and support itself as well as the transit system. And then this leads to a more financially sustainable form of development for the city and JTA.
Okay, great. Thank you, Zan, for that introduction. Again, I'm Josh Turner, the urban designer on the team. So tonight, the main focus of our discussion and our engagement will be for our TOD frameworks that we've created for, we've created them for 6 stations. Tonight we're talking about Shipyards, Rosa Parks, and JRTC. And really how this will go down is that we'll talk about each station individually. We'll first talk about the framework itself. We've broken this down into 3 pieces or 3 layers. The first one, first layer is circulation. The second, we layer on the open space network and public realm discussion. And the third layer, we bring it all together within a transit-oriented development framework. So you can't really begin to realize where possible development's going to go unless you understand what the concept and what the priorities are for circulation, connectivity, and also your public realm and your open space. After talking about the framework and breaking it down into that detail, we'll show some examples, precedent imagery from that really represent best practices for different approaches to TOD development, or specifically to the framework. So precedents as they relate to public realm and open space, and then also the type of development that we think could be appropriate for these different station areas. After talking about the framework and reviewing some precedent imagery, then we'll take a moment to engage and really field any questions or comments about the more detailed conversation about the framework. And then we'll continue the discussion of that station with a live sketch session. So this is over an aerial, and the idea here is to, it's a lot of information that we're putting out there tonight. So the idea is to take a lot of those key elements, kind of put them down in real time, get the lay of the land, kind of build up one of these TOD frameworks for the station. And also this is the opportunity for your input. What would you like to see in one of these station areas? And so for example, last night we were in Springfield, and we had some requests for a grocery store and a mixed-use development. So it's something that we wasn't necessarily explicit within our framework discussion, but it's something that we were able to add during the live sketch session. Of course, before COVID times, we would be here. We would all be in person. We would be sitting at a table with a lot of maps on the table and trace paper and markers. So given the circumstances, we're really trying to push forward different ways that we can engage while we're all being virtual. So let's go ahead and begin our discussion about one of these stations, so Shipyards. As you can see here, this is an aerial looking from just above kind of the Shipyards area, probably just west of Lot J and looking towards downtown. In our previous phase of work, and really all of the framework work that we've done is really built upon the existing conditions analysis that we conducted in late winter and throughout the spring and then into early summer. Part of that work was understanding what the different characteristics of each of these station areas. So we went through an exercise where we assigned topologies, or really, what type of place each one of these stations are. We don't have to go through all of them, but I will point out that Shipyards is a topology that falls into special use. So this makes a lot of sense when we understand or we think about what's there now. There's a lot of single use destination type places like Five Star Arena, the stadium, the baseball grounds, Met Park. So it's something that's different from, let's say, a core neighborhood or even the central business district downtown. This just to review some of the things that we that really kind of floated to the surface, and that we some of our observations for the Shipyard station area. First, the map on the right in the purple, that represents land that is publicly owned, and that's important when we think about transit-oriented development. Private land or parcels in private ownership could certainly be considered for TOD, but but usually publicly owned parcels are something that can prove beneficial as far as getting projects off the ground. We also note that the shipyard station area does have some environmental issues, and this could be also the reason why this very valuable piece of waterfront has yet to be developed. So it's something that we acknowledge, and it's part of the narrative that we're building for this station area. And also, just this station area providing a critical link between the sports complex to the east and also the downtown area to the west. So it's really, it's not only a very valuable and piece of the waterfront, but also providing that critical east-west link as part of the downtown story. So to get into the framework, those layers that we're talking about, as you can see here on the image on the left, there's shipyard stations, as Zan pointed out. It's where it's currently planned to go, but we're very early on in the planning process. So, that could, you could understand that dot as shifting around, but I think it's in a good location to really capitalize on really the full potential of what this station could be. Some of the design principles that are important to this framework for circulation is first, really realizing what asset this could be in the greater context of the Jacksonville Riverwalk network, and that's, we believe that any plan, be it parks and development, should absolutely emphasize and prioritize a generous pedestrian-only promenade right at the waterfront. And that goes a long way to reinforcing that east-west connection I was talking about between sports complex and downtown. So in addition to that, you want to be able to connect to the shipyard's waterfront. You want to be able to connect to the park if there's going to be a large destination waterfront park there, which we think makes a lot of sense for something like that to go here. So creating and reinforcing those connections upland are very, very important. And we think these are pedestrian connections. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to look at the existing street grid and extend those right-of-ways down into the shipyards area, and in this case, making connections with those right-of-ways to the waterfront promenade. And Randolph plays an important role, as does Lafayette. And then also you have maybe to a little bit lesser degree, but Marsh Street over to the west. And maybe there's an additional right-of-way that provides linkage between Maxwell House and the waterfront. We also want to point out that in addition to Bay Street, Adams Street is a secondary, but also a key east-west connection that falls within the station area, not at the waterfront, but it's just another way to circulate through the station area, and in this case, connecting east and west. So layering on top of our circulation framework, I want to talk about the open space network, really building upon that connectivity and also adding important places for, most importantly for this station area, new places to recreate. So with A, again, we think that there's, along the waterfront, there should be a generous waterfront promenade. You can think of this as being 50, 60 feet wide, perhaps in some places even wider. But really, it's more than just a waterfront trail. It's an entire, you could think of it as a linear park along the waterfront. B here is the whole story of connecting to the Emerald Trail and Hogan's Creek. So we think that that's a really exciting connection that starts to not only land Shipyard Station within the context of downtown, but then really Shipyard Station within the region, and being able to provide a regional connection via open space to the waterfront and connecting to the Emerald Trail, we think is absolutely critical, and it plays an important role with our ideas for this station area. Then you've heard me mention the idea for park space at the waterfront. We think that's extremely important. So there seems to be a lot of opportunity to provide a significant signature open space at the waterfront to really capitalize on that access to the water, and then also just provide Jacksonville with a high caliber, a high quality open space. And we think that that can take a lot of forms. It could be a lot of different scales too. In this diagram, we have them occupying the piers, which are quite large, but you could see that green space flooding up into those areas between Bay Street and the Waterfront Promenade. So, we're so early on in our planning, but the important principle here is that we think Shipyard Station, one of the main storylines is that it's a significant regional new park for Jacksonville. Just continuing down here along, if you look at D along Bay Street, so U2C is along Bay Street. It's one of the first phases that will come online for U2C, the Bay Street Innovation Corridor. So we want to look at Bay Street, and we want to make sure that Bay Street as a critical piece of the public realm, that it's really optimized for the pedestrian. Also giving opportunity for different modes of circulation along Bay Street. So that might be, of course, that is certainly bicycles. There might be opportunity to integrate other forms of micromobility as they relate to the U2C network, and then also the existing JTA bus network. But the key takeaway here is, what are the strategies we can put forward to make Bay Street a safe place for pedestrians, and then also just crossing. We spoke about those upland connections. So just crossing Bay Street, we want to make sure that that's a safe connection to the waterfront, because we will be wanting to make the waterfront a destination. Finally, here on the open space network is E, incorporate complete streets principles along Lafayette and Randolph. Again, that just supports really the idea of the upland connection. So not just the intersection at Bay Street, but think about attending an event at ViStar Arena or going to a baseball game. If there's somewhere to go at the waterfront, you want your experience along Randolph or Lafayette to really support an enjoyable, safe, and really optimized realm for the public to circulate between the waterfront and these destinations to the north. I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. So we talked about circulation. We layered on our ideas for an open space, the public realm, and that really sets the stage then for, okay, so, are there opportunities for there to be development associated with a premium mode of transportation coming into this area and along Bay Street? The whole idea with TOD is really leveraging that investment in transportation infrastructure, and they both work together to really put forward an idea of walkability, transit connected places that also have compact and sustainable approach to development. Just to run down a couple of the ideas here that we have for Shipyards. So you'll see A here. So we still have everything in place. We have the large waterfront promenade. We have the high caliber kind of destination waterfront spaces that are just to the south of that. And we think that there could be associated with this new open space, we could be very strategic with development and create a mixed use waterfront district that's integrated with this new park. Right now in this scenario, we're showing, in this darker red, we're showing two new pads, if you will, or two new parcels for mixed-use development, and we think that it should be, probably multifamily residential. Maybe it's a hotel that complements a proposed or possible new convention center in the area. But really, you can think about the ground floors and maybe multiple levels being terraced and really opening up to the water. But it's all about how these buildings have a direct connection and the experience that you have having a direct connection to the waterfront. So we think that along the promenade are restaurants and bars and places for to really take a moment, engage the waterfront, but then also there could be opportunities for apartments and hotels. And we also think that, we know, we're very, very aware, and as you all are, of the plans that have been in place for quite some time now for Lot J, and the exciting kind of courtish experience that's mainly kind of entertainment based. We think that, and whether that, continues to move forward, which we certainly hope it does, we wanted to think of the Shipyards area as something a little different than that. So it's not solely an entertainment focus, but really the opportunity to create a waterfront neighborhood, a mixed-use waterfront neighborhood. And it could be of different scales. It could be where to the south of Bay Street, there is a variety of mixed-use development. More of these parcels could be for a larger park. So it's important, we think, to get out different approaches to how you approach the Shipyard station and the opportunity that the waterfront has. A couple other details here. So we think that adjacent to the station and integrated with a new park, and then also that new waterfront neighborhood, there should be a civic place, so a new waterfront public plaza. So you can think of it as an extension of one of these parks, but it's maybe a little bit more urban in character. Maybe it's a place specifically for gathering at the waterfront. You can think of it as having a higher percentage of hardscape paving mixed in with the landscape, whereas maybe out at the piers, it's more specifically for active and passive recreation. But we think that a gathering place really helps bring together the elements of transportation, the new park, the waterfront, and of course, the possibility of new development that could occur as associated with this. Then just some other ideas that we had. So, that corridor along Randolph Street, is there an opportunity to create a kind of tactical or small scale urban design to help kind of create maybe a small node? I was really impressed with already the feeling of the street frontage. You have a very large arena, and you have a minor league baseball field, but with keeping one of the older buildings, there's a real sense of place here, and we would want to build upon that. And then mixing in a place like Intuition Ale Works, among other things, we think that this corridor can be a quite exciting and interesting place that gets you to the waterfront, or get you from the waterfront and from U2C to ViStar Arena or the game, and points northwards. Finally, we want to, Maxwell House, we think it's an important employer. We don't want to see necessarily this go away. The Shipyards has a legacy of being industrial in nature. So, we want to leverage Maxwell House with and understand its place among new development and also new places for recreation at the Shipyard. So we want everything to work together. So we want to leverage that existing place of employment and also really just anchor for this neighborhood in particular. So, what does some of this stuff look like? There's, if we want to talk about the waterfront park, we really want to emphasize the idea of having both active and passive opportunities to engage the water and to recreate at the park. On the left, this is an image, or this is the idea of using a large scale art installation serving as a node within what really is a passive area of a park, and this is at South Point Park in Miami. On the left, on the right, these piers in Brooklyn in New York are very similar to some of the piers that we have at Shipyards. And what they've done here is they've programmed each pier in a different way. So on one pier, you can see here the soccer fields. This is obviously active activation. People are going there specifically to play sports or to be a spectator. Then you have some of these other piers that are more passive in nature. Maybe they have a more specific idea of a landscape design concept. And as you can see here in the corner, they also have a little place for a little pavilion for a restaurant. And those little programs are really important to create a holistic programming for these new open spaces. So, we talked about what our ideas were for a new park at the waterfront. And again, we think it's something that should be high caliber. It should be, something that garners national attention, and also have a high quality and very good landscape design to it. We won't be designing the park for our work, of course. We're just planning, acting as planning, really identifying the areas where we think a park should be located. The image on the left is still of Brooklyn Bridge Park, which is the image that we were just talking about with the different piers. This is further down. This is kind of the first pier, if you will. And to give you a sense of scale, this pier here is about the same size as if you take this if this red box turned to green. And so this pier is about that size. Actually, the one in Brooklyn Bridge Park is a little smaller. But what I wanted to point out here, and I think I'll go ahead and draw it on, is so we have the park space here, and this is built on an old pier. And then this is more, it's more of a passive park rather than having sports fields, but there's certainly a lot of different things that you can do. There's a playground. But something I did want to point out here is with this particular example, you can see this building in the background. This development was built in conjunction with the park. There's a hotel here at the end, and then these are residences. And this is one way development can be very strategic. It can be integrated very seamlessly in with new open spaces like at Brooklyn Bridge Park. But maybe most importantly, the idea here is that these buildings are actually paying for a good portion of the maintaining this park, and understanding where those funding streams come from is very important. So we think it's a very interesting precedent. We also like the fact that it doesn't have to be towers at the waterfront. I think these range in height maybe up to 10 stories. So development done right can live very nicely among new open space at the waterfront. The image on the right here, this is in Tampa. This is Sparkman Wharf. So if you think about, we were talking about the waterfront promenade and how different things could be going on. You can think of this building here as being part of that development program. And as you can see, you have restaurants and bars and kind of the activation opening up to, in our case, to that promenade space. So we think this type of activation is meaningful. It gives just a lot of different opportunities for what you can do at the waterfront. Maybe that's a little bit different story than what's happening at Metropolitan Park. Oh, whoops. So that was our primary discussion for Shipyards, or at least the discussion of the frameworks. Before getting into this aerial and maybe again dropping on some of those elements, I really wanted to open it up, maybe check in with Zan to see if we had any questions or comments come in about the frameworks about Shipyards.
Sure thing, Josh. So I saw a couple come in regarding zoning in the area. So the DIA and the city worked recently to approve the new downtown overlay, which really helps simplify the zoning, and a lot of the features within that zoning overlay are actually really supportive of TOD. So, we are comfortable with the zoning, in this area for, all of the things that we are proposing in this vision. As you start drawing that network there, Josh, some of the questions include connecting the Riverwalk that exists along the north bank through kind of the Shipyards area to the stadium. Can you just touch on kind of the promenade and how that would connect?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the first things we thought of when thinking about this station area. It's one of the most important ways this area helps fill in the missing piece of connectivity between what sometimes feels really far to the east, which is the sports complex, and of course downtown. So I'll actually sketch in that waterfront promenade here, but I do want to. What I did was I just dropped in, as Zan, you were talking, I dropped in really the planned U2C alignment along Bay Street. I indicated here at this asterisk the planned station at Shipyards, and I also dropped in, the idea of some station being integrated with future development at the stadium.
And just to touch on that, Josh, real quick. So, yes, utilizing Bay Street, but the actual route into the stadium area is being designed currently. So, again, this is just planning level sketch of that area.
So the green line I'm drawing now, it's tracing the waterfront, but the idea here is that on either end, and however ultimately the parcels around the stadium are developed, that we believe that there should be a waterfront connection connecting in with the existing Riverwalk network, both to the west, and then also connecting in with Metropolitan Park to the east.
We have some other comments, Josh, related to the amount of park space, and some comments regarding Metro Park and the situation with Met Park is very fluid still. It's constantly in the news now. So addressing kind of these parks aren't really there to work as a swap for Met Park. This vision is really just determining what we feel is a good use for the area as it relates to transit-oriented development. And again, more park space is actually beneficial for the waterfront, helping with a lot of the resiliency issues that the city is facing currently.
Yep, that's right. So this would be, you can think of the new spaces at Shipyard Waterfront to be among the collection of open spaces throughout Jacksonville. Most immediate would be Met Park here. So it would be building upon the open space network within Jacksonville. And of course, the Emerald Trail and Hogan Creek, as I was talking about earlier, that connection plays an important role with our planned station area, but then also connecting you to that waterfront. Something else I just dropped in, I dropped in these blue arrows are those upland connections. So dropping in one along Randolph, connecting the baseball stadium, ViStar Arena, Intuition Ale, providing that connection to the waterfront. We also think Lafayette, just to the west, is an important one. And then also, just other areas to connect to the waterfront to the west. So we have one along Marsh, and then also maybe adding one that's more closely associated with Maxwell House. So dropping in here, what I want to do is, I want to just highlight, where this new park, should be. And again, we're very early on in the planning, and what we want to put forward is part of our vision is to help guide the discussion of how the vision for Shipyards takes place throughout, in the future. And key to our study is just how Shipyards fits within the transportation story and the expansion of the Skyway and transformation into U2C. So that's what makes this specific to transportation. And we think that providing a station on the network to connect to this green space, this waterfront green space, would be pretty incredible. So what I want to do is then just point out, we put in kind of both piers as large waterfront open spaces, and now I just want to point out these other areas that are kind of, I wouldn't say left behind, but they're in addition to the elements that are kind of taking shape here at the waterfront. So this is where. And if you can think back to that image of the apartment building and the hotel that was by that big waterfront park pier in Brooklyn, are these spaces opportunity for that type of development? And again, it doesn't necessarily, I don't think our team would be putting forward the idea of a tower on the waterfront, but something that's very contextual and something that really engages and capitalizes on the asset here. Just want to kind of continue. So what I'll do then is I'm just going to outline a couple of these nearby places. So we have kind of ViStar Arena, we have the baseball grounds, we have Intuition Ale Works, we also have the stadium over here, and actually, to a bigger degree, really sports complex. And then also downtown to the west. And as you can see how Shipyard Station falls really right in between here and is really key. I want to point out a couple other things because it's a part of the neighborhood. So we have the detention center here. And as part of our planning process, we don't think that's going anywhere. It may, but for our purposes, it's living within the context of the planning work that we're looking at for Shipyards. And then we also have, I believe that building now is down, but are there, just to extend, is there an opportunity here? And then also maybe adjacent to Maxwell House to maybe push the idea of some of this development to occur north of Bay Street.
You highlighted a lot of the kind of connecting areas there. So Shipyards, in a sense, is sort of a transitional zone between kind of a highly focused kind of entertainment area and the traditional kind of urban core downtown. What kind of features can we include in this plan that will kind of act as that transition zone, but also make it a destination in itself?
Yeah. So I think that we don't have to, come out and say, oh, Shipyard should be an entertainment destination for the region, but it can have elements that do act as a draw. And we think that there's a real opportunity here to complement right now, even before sports complex gets fully built out and however that may happen, we think that for the existing entertainment amenities or assets in this area, the stadium, the arena, the baseball grounds, we think that those are destinations in of themselves. So could these yellow circles, could these be mixed use development that has restaurants and bars that could really complement people coming to a game, people coming to an event? Is there an opportunity to keep them in the neighborhood, whereas normally they might immediately leave the neighborhood once the event or the game was over? Is there an opportunity to, before the game or after the game, walk down Randolph, walk down Lafayette, and all of a sudden you're in this new waterfront place? And are there opportunities to eat? Are there opportunities to just passively enjoy and engage the waterfront? Again, the waterfront promenade, I think that that in of itself really is a linear park, and there's an opportunity there that in of itself is a destination. So it's really kind of key to, when we say mixed use, just different options for people to do things. And there could be an opportunity for people to certainly live at the waterfront as well, as we were showing with that precedent image. So maybe I'll sketch in here maybe one of those, the idea of a waterfront building that really opens up to the water. Maybe it's apartments above. It has an activated ground floor that has restaurants that open up to the water and to the promenade. So what this is all about is, it's really all about engaging the water, but then also, providing an activated ground floor that, you can even activate the public realm, where the public realm or places to set or places to recreate can actually be integrated with the development itself. So that doesn't have to be such a, doesn't have to be black or white. It can be somewhere in the middle where the two are integrated and they mix. And we think that makes for an interesting place.
Just to open it up to the participants, is there anything that you might feel that downtown is missing that may fit into the context of this area? And you can either comment that in the chat or add it to the map question below the chat.
Great. And Zan, maybe while we wait for comments, if some more come in for Shipyards, we could always come back.
Great. Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next framework.
Great. Okay. So we will be moving on to Rosa Parks. A little bit different of an area than the waterfront at Shipyards. So this is an image that most people are familiar with, what was formerly the main transit hub for the Skyway. Of course, that's moved over to the JRTC. So you have the current station and terminus to the north for the Skyway. And then the buildings, of course, you have then downtown looking south in the background. And then really key to thinking about Rosa Parks Station and our thinking for transit-oriented development are, the First Baptist parcels. And we have one of the older auditoriums here on the left, and their parking garages. And so really what the future of those parcels and how they play into a new vision for the Rosa Parks Station. As a topology, Rosa Parks is just north of downtown and certainly part of the central business district. But we think that, we weren't necessarily, when we were assigning the topology, we weren't necessarily thinking about what it is today, but maybe what it could be in the future. When you have the expansion and the transformation of the Skyway to the U2C. So we think it has an opportunity to be a high intensity kind of urban center that's really acting as an anchor for the north part of downtown. Some of the things that we observed during our existing conditions analysis, we think that the station area has really strong leadership between JTA and the DIA. So a leadership that will support a vision that is very much transit-oriented development. We also think that between this dark purple parcel here, which actually is a publicly owned parcel of JTA, we think that just adding in then the First Baptist parcels, that there's a significant suitability for transit-oriented development to occur in the immediate station area. that JTA parcel that I pointed out, the dark purple, these larger development areas, they take time to play out, and is certainly now with a lot of unknowns surrounding COVID and what it means for the economy and the local market. So we always think about our station areas and our planning for TOD in phases and over a timeline. So when we think about Rosa Parks, what could it ultimately look like in, let's say, 15 years? But you have to start somewhere, and we think that the parcel that is actually owned by JTA is quite large. It's where the station is, and so we asked the question: could this be a phase one project that could be catalytic for the larger station area, and really help inform and set the tone for how the Rosa Parks station can be fully realized. And again, I brought up the First Baptist parcels. They're really critical to creating a cohesive vision for the Rosa Parks station area. In a perfect world, all those parcels would be part of a larger master plan, and there would be a very strong vision for how all this development should come together in phases. Similar to how we did with Shipyards, we'll talk about Rosa Parks Station in its 3 layers. So first here for circulation, with State Street and Union Street, these are really important corridors to get people in and out of downtown. So we don't see that changing, but what we would like to see is, in and around the station area, are there ways that we can introduce traffic calming measures to promote pedestrian safety and circulation? If we're wanting to create a new place here where one does not exist now, this is one of the things that we always ensure that are part of the planning process. At least the idea is put out there for discussion with the hopes that it can gain some traction. So we think that's definitely very important right in the immediate station area, getting people from the station to points south or even points north. With Hogan Street, this corridor, we really like the ideas being put forward by the DIA for this being a corridor of local restaurants and bars, and really being a place where people go. So you can think of downtown not just as a 9 to 5, but maybe it could be an 18-hour. You've heard of a 24-hour district, so maybe this is an 18-hour district where people are staying through the evening or even on the weekends, coming and visiting and patronizing restaurants and bars that make a name for themselves downtown. We also think Hogan Street's really interesting because the Skyway is there, and so we want to put forward the question: what if Hogan Street was pedestrianized? It would have the elevated U2C network circulating above, but Hogan Street's pretty tight. And so could there be opportunities for some of those restaurants to kind of flood out into the Hogan Street right away and really add to that activation? Then throughout the station area, but especially on Alora Street and Main Street, we want to expand the streetscape improvements that have already occurred. But just like on State Street and Union Street, we want to just make sure that we're putting forward ideas that reinforce pedestrian safety and circulation. We want to make it enjoyable, and we want to make it a real option for people to circulate by foot throughout the station area. Then one of the bigger moves from this circulation layer is, currently right now, the Hogan Street is not a full right-of-way going north to Bethel Church through FSC. So we want to explore to promote connectivity. Could there be a right-of-way for Hogan Street that's north of State Street that takes you up to First? And this could be a limited street. It could be just a pedestrian right-of-way. But really here, the idea is that we're continuing that circulation idea or concept further north to First Street. And at some point, the U2C vehicle, and it's not figured out yet, but it will need to make its transition from the elevated skyway down to grade. So that's a very important transition, and they happen throughout the system. But how does that vehicle get from the elevated infrastructure down to grade? And so this is one of those points, and we think that it
Josh,
makes yeah.
just to cut in,
Yeah,
and not only pedestrianize, but also, support that vision of Hogan Street and the cycle track that's put forth by the city and DIA. I think another great project to connect through, making it a truly multimodal kind of corridor.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and then finally, to support, right now it's a parking lot for FSC, and parking is very important. But could we extend Orange to connect to an extension of Hogan, and really that promotes walkable blocks, allowing people to connect on Orange to this multimodal corridor over to Hogan. So just really kind of completing the idea of connectivity using the existing street grid and proposed extensions. Just to go over some of the open space network ideas that we have, we've now turned on our green layer, if you will. So you'll see A here in these large green arrows. It's really just the idea to use the ideas of complete streets to create and optimize that public realm for people to circulate within. So we were talking about before with circulation, the streets themselves, and ensuring that we have crosswalks and safety as a part of it. Well, this is more about the experience. So adding enhanced lighting, maybe there's benches, trash cans, places for bicycle lanes and bicycle stations. So all of those come together to really reinforce and optimize the experience for the pedestrian. We also think that, and this is just a concept, but you see some of these little green squares here. We think that conceptually, within new development that happens within these blocks, could little pocket parks be carved out from that development to add to an expanded and enhanced open space network? So it's not just an improved experience along the sidewalk, but you actually have little places to explore along these corridors. Again, that's something that's fairly high concept. I think when we start laying out what some of these blocks could actually look like, it would become more apparent, where these little pocket parks or pocket plazas could occur. But the idea here is that it's just not all development. Then also, similar to Shipyards, where we had a public place associated with the station, we think that at Rosa Parks, the idea of having a new civic plaza is something that's very important. It provides a threshold and really an interface, a public interface between transportation and new development, and really just the station area. And we always would want something like that to be centrally located within the station. So right now we have the idea that maybe there could be a new civic space, south of Union and west of Hogan. One thing I didn't mention also is that, we talked about the Emerald Trail and Hogan Creek down at Shipyards, and, still continuing with that kind of diagonal, regionally scaled open space network. We see Hogan, we see Laura, we see Main Street as all feeding into that regional open space network. So that's also something that Complete Streets can help promote, is that connectivity. So bringing then now the idea, so we've laid the foundation, and so you see a lot of colors here. There's a lot of real estate to work with, but I'll try to focus the conversation really around Rosa Parks and just some of the big ideas here. So among all the stations that we're looking at, certainly Rosa Parks is, I would say, the most intense. Also, I think the one that has the longest time horizon as far as fully realizing the vision of what the station area could be. But we do think that there's real near-term opportunity in those blocks right around the station, actually on the station, and then of course the First Baptist blocks. So to break this down and to explain what these colors are, so you see here A, we think that this could be a high intensity mixed use center, and this is anchored by Rosa Parks Station. So this could be a multi-family, I wouldn't say tower, but maybe a mid-rise building, 10, 15, maybe 20 stories, but really the centerpiece of this new station area. And it's directly associated and connected with the Rosa Parks Station. Perhaps there's an opportunity to have another hotel downtown. It would be great to have some more options to stay. The Omni and the Hyatt are great, but it would be great to have different options throughout the downtown area when visiting. Then associated with that, if this is a primary place for mixed use, so, and I should add that similar to Shipyards, the ground floors would be activated with restaurants. Maybe here you have shops. I don't think that this is a new shopping district, but I think, the ground floors of this new development definitely ties into the Hogan Street corridor. And so it kind of continues that restaurant and bar and kind of 18-hour activation storyline to the Rosa Parks Station. And that actually gets us to point B, create a local and restaurant and bar corridor along Hogan Street to support that 18-hour activity. So, we think that maybe Rosa Parks Station could be the culmination of the good planning and ideas being put forward for Hogan Street. And, if we zoom out just a little bit, Hogan Street, Laura, Julia, it takes you all to the waterfront, to the St. Johns River. So this idea of kind of connecting downtown, and if the waterfront in downtown is one anchor, Rosa Parks is the other, and then everything that happens in between is within these corridors, and we think that's really exciting. Then we just wanted to explore, okay, so, we have a mixed use development, a multifamily building, maybe there's a smaller hotel. We know we want to do restaurants and bars, but, what are some other programming that can happen within the station area? And so we look around for opportunities for, perhaps with FSC Jacksonville, there's an opportunity to pair up a creative office hub for technology and health sciences. It's a big idea, but these successful partnerships have happened all around the country. So we think that to mix up and to complement the programming of Hogan Street and that high intensity mixed use center, maybe there could be, not a straight up kind of, maybe these are not tall office buildings, but they're more mid-rise kind of, creative, or really an office hub for technology and health sciences. And again, it's that direct connection with the university here is what we're looking at. So it's more of a concept and relationship, and how it can give some variation to the station area as far as land use and programming. So if this was an office kind of tech hub or health sciences hub here in the blue, over here in the deep purple on D, is there a place that we could redevelop vacant blocks and cluster kind of low-rise flex space or live work units for small businesses and creative industries? And there's a building here at Main and Orange that really inspired us, and you see it a lot of places. I'm thinking of the place in Tampa, and the name, I can't think of the name right now, but we will see it as a precedent. But they've taken it's really adaptive reuse. They've taken an old building, they've turned it into a food hall. I think there's some other programming components there. So maybe not a food hall here, but then maybe a place to, adaptively reusing some existing buildings, making a place for a different type of worker, maybe a place for creative industries and small businesses. We also like the idea that this is on Main Street, and it really kind of plays into the Main Street corridor that we talked about last night, kind of culminating with 8th and Main, and that smaller scale, smaller grain type activation. We think that, down here, south of Orange, we think that this could be really the start of that Springfield corridor. And then finally, these yellow areas that you see off to the side, are there are there blocks or are there opportunities for there to be just straight up multifamily residential developments? We think, especially over here in E, there's there's a major kind of civic and governmental employment center here between the Duval County courts and the U.S. District Court. So could we give those workers and employees, and maybe not just there, but to just all of downtown, a place to also live as well? And we think that, there could be opportunities. So the ground floors of these residential buildings, they wouldn't be quite activated the same as over at Rosa Parks with kind of high energy restaurants and really kind of destination places. Over here, we see that the ground floors are more activated with essential neighborhood needs. So you have your dry cleaners, maybe you have a small market, you have a coffee shop, maybe a small cafe or something. But that, the point here is that the development and kind of the land use programming would be more residential and neighborhood in character versus what's happening really at the epicenter right at the Rosa Parks station. And we think that that could be a mix of multifamily apartments, it could be condos, it could be townhomes, it could also be workforce and affordable housing like what we're seeing over in La Villa. So what does some of this stuff look like? We look to Florida and specifically Miami, also Tampa. So this image on the left, it's new development. This is a rendering, but these buildings have actually been built and they're directly associated with Virgin Miami, that line going northward. So we acknowledge that commuter rail, kind of regional commuter rail, is not going to be happening at the Rosa Parks station. So maybe some of these images might be more intense than what is probably possible, but we do like the relationship that we're seeing, development that's directly integrated with transportation. And similar to this image on the left, the Skyway is elevated there, and U2C will, as planned now, be still elevated at that point. So how does development, what are the opportunities to kind of integrate and mix the two? The image on the right, this is in Tampa. So this is a mix of residential, office, and mixed-use developments. This is along Water Street. These buildings are under construction now. But as you can see, maybe not necessarily skyscrapers, but definitely high density, kind of intense new development. We do think that given the right market conditions and the right planning and also the right vision, certainly this level of development would be appropriate given the transportation and just the proximity to downtown, really the assets that the Rosa Parks station really has to offer. I also want to point out, the planning for this new neighborhood, they do a great job at really optimizing that public realm and merging the public realm and really making it a place for the pedestrian with this new development, so it all coexists. It really makes for a nice place. And actually these images speak directly to that. So some of the planning here on the left, so the idea that, and you can think of Hogan Street again, restaurants kind of spilling out, mixing with new development, having a great enhanced kind of street lighting, a lot of vegetation and street trees. It's hot in Florida, but you still, want to seize opportunities to be outdoors. Again, this image on the right here, this is, I think, a little bit more, reminds me of the scale of Hogan Street. And if it would become maybe given over to pedestrians, how could restaurants and bars and other places really could activate that entire corridor? Talking about that mixed use development, so maybe, so these are primarily residential, but they do have a mix of uses on the ground floor. The image here on the right, this is in Cincinnati, and what we like about it is if you could think of this building being at kind of right in that Rosa Parks station area, you still need to, parking's a very important issue, and it will need to be provided. And there are great strategies to integrate parking, and a lot of it, with new development. So what we like about this image is that, that the parking garage is actually up to 10 stories, but the treatment of the design of it, it really blends in with the actual residential building. So it's a little easy to see that the parking garage above grade, which it would be in Jacksonville, would exists here. But what doesn't pop out to you is that it's also over here as well. You can see some of the ramping. So when putting forward the idea of mixed use development, it's these subtle strategies that really do a great job at integrating a must-have for denser development, and especially in downtown Jacksonville, where parking is on people's mind. The image on the right, this just it's a little it's more of a mixed use. So whereas the building on the right, on the left is residential, this has those activated ground floors. So if you can imagine, this is at the Rosa Parks station. The station is perhaps back here, or maybe coming right through, and so it's that kind of more intense mixed use development, the culmination of that Hogan Street or downtown restaurant scene, really a place to go, and anchoring the station itself. These are some ideas of how, what does a tech hub look like? So the image here on the left, again, staying in Florida, the Creative Village in Orlando. So I brought up that new Civic Plaza that could be associated with with the Tech and Health Sciences Hub. So this is where you have modestly scaled buildings. These are actually still quite large, but these, and again, all kind of anchored by this new civic gathering place, which would then have that direct connection to the U2C, and really forming the hub, or really kind of the center gathering space for the whole station area. The image on the right, this is in Denver. This is part of their Denver Union Station redevelopment. And what I like about it is how, so what this bridge is bridging over is a light rail alignment. And you can go up these stairs and go across the light rail, which is lower than this street level, if you will. But then you can also go down and connect to the light rail. So you're doing, and then mixing in with that, then you have new office development that's directly integrated. So this, you're going up these stairs, and this space up here before you cross the bridge is a part of that plaza space between these two office buildings. But you can also circulate down and connect to the transportation. So not exactly the condition that we see at Rosa Parks, but really the takeaway here is just the relationship of how people circulate, transportation, and the integration of development. Armature Works is the name that I forgot in Tampa. A really interesting place, new mixed-use development occurring. You can see it here off into the background, but a large food hall, and really taking the opportunity to adaptively reuse an existing building. So it's both a market and a food hall. Over here on the right, again, it's a building that's been adaptively reused. This is for offices. So that this is when we're thinking about creative office spaces, live work environments, but it doesn't all have to be new construction. It can be creatively thinking about, or strategically reimagining existing buildings. And finally, if that was a little bit larger, the scale, this is in Culver City, California. So you have, I believe part of this, the programming is affordable housing. So you just have, kind of a different take on a mixed use and kind of a lower density center and marketplace. So it has all those elements that we've been talking about. Just the density is a little scaled down, but this is also something that is directly connected in with the regional transportation network. And as you can see here, if you can think of, this is in Culver City still, but you can think of, if this was the Skyway above, or what will be the U2C, you can think about different ways that this space can be activated below. So if it is, if Hogan Street is pedestrianized, and you have restaurants and bars mixing with, maybe a landscape or open space network, and I think it makes it really dynamic with this infrastructure, with the transportation infrastructure. So before we get into sketching some of these ideas over Rosa Parks, I want to check back in with Zan and take a look at any comments or questions we've had come in.
Not many coming in. So I'll take this opportunity as you start to draw the kind of mobility network to open this up to any of the participants on the meeting right now that if you were to live down here or in downtown, what features do you feel are missing, and what do you think are essential services to making this a place you would want to go? And again, you can enter those in the comment box on the right or below your video, or on the map question for the Rosa Parks Transit Center.
All right, as those come in, I'm just dropping in some of the elements here. So obviously I dropped in the Rosa Parks station. We have the existing alignment going south, and then along Hogan corridor, and then we have that the new alignment going north along Hogan and connecting into Springfield up on First. So what I want to do in this one is just probably go through and outline a couple of some of the key features here in the station area. So we have currently the JEA building over here. It's an important kind of local landmark. We also have the First Baptist Church, and this block, as the discussions are going now, this block will be remaining and serving the First Baptist folks. We also have an apartment building over here, and I might not get every single one, but I'm going to point out the ones that kind of pop out that that are part of the station area design. We also have the university up here. And so now I want to point out, some of well, actually, I think what I'll do first is talk about the streets. So we have Main Street over here. Actually, I'm going to get a little bit thicker of a pen. It's an important corridor connecting the station area to points northward, Springfield. A little closer in, we have Laura here, providing a direct connection to the waterfront. Of course, we have Hogan Street, playing a central role in our station area. And then the idea of extending Hogan Street and really creating a multimodal corridor. And then we have Julia here, which is another, whoops. So this is the process as we create and kind of create our frameworks. This is the first thing that we do is we start tracing out, what's existing now, what's the critical, what's the hierarchy of circulation within the station area. So I'm going to drop in State Street. And then we have Union. Zan, did I get those reversed or did I get them right?
I think you got them.
Okay. All right. So now we have, we've illuminated our grid here, and I want to, then talk about, the idea then that, we have a complete streets, our enhanced public realm, and that would be something that is very important as this station area comes into play. But then we talked about earlier, really making sure that, and this is State Street, correct, Sam? I just want to make sure I have them correct.
Union is on the south.
Got it. Okay. I was feeling like I had those reversed. So this is Union. So this is thinking about, circulating from the station to points south, or even coming from downtown to points north. how can we create a safer environment, and are there traffic calming measures that can be done, especially along Union Street. Really, it's that interface between the Rosa Parks Station and downtown proper. So now you're left with really kind of I would say the elephant in the room. You have these large blocks here that we know that the idea is for something in the future to happen. So these are the First Baptist blocks. Some of them are auditoriums, some of them are parking garages, but there are quite a few. And these would not, with the current discussions, not be a part of the First Baptist place in this part of downtown. So for now, I'm going to just put a question mark because it's a big question. It's an unknown of how do these blocks help promote a cohesive vision for the Rosa Parks Station area. Then we have the parcel at Rosa Parks. We also have a portion over here to the west. And if we want to think, okay, well, where do we begin? How do we start to build that vision for this station area? And so I think I'm going to give it a shot. I'm just going to see what happens if I start dropping in maybe a little mixed use building here. We'll fill a block. Maybe this one's a little bit taller. I don't like how big that one is, so we'll just go back. All right.
Josh, as you draw those out,
Yeah.
so just a few comments coming in. So State and Union have, always been these major thoroughfares through, downtown Jacksonville, and it seems there's, no plans on kind of reducing those, or it's been a challenge to work with, to reduce those lanes counts there. Is there any, can you speak to any of the traffic calming measures that might, help alleviate some of that safety concern as you build out sort of a, destination there?
Yeah.
Could you utilize things like signal timing, or even just activating the kind of street side there to slow things down?
Yeah, I mean, we still think, as we discussed before, these two streets, play a critical role in the larger vehicular network for Jacksonville, and we think that will still continue to be the case regardless of what's here. Is there an opportunity, let's say, between Pearl to the west and Main Street to the east, to maybe tighten things up a little bit, slow things down a little bit? So I think you hit on one of the strategies, and timing with lights. Also, putting in a very clear, maybe it's not even just a crosswalk, but maybe there are new medians introduced. So maybe there's an island. So there's maybe could be a little bit of a road diet. So maybe not taking away lanes, but just tightening things up, and giving different options for, giving different options for people to safely kind of cross what is normally a pretty busy and fast moving street. We also think that landscaping and lighting, also wayfinding, can all work together to help really improve the situation and really be in support of this being a place That's both on the north and south side of Union.
Great, thank you. And so some additional comments. So if, there's a lot of question marks on that map right now, and if, the situation is fluid for First Baptist and really their decisions in the market will decide kind of what happens there. But in the case that may not happen, is there any kind of potential partnership to utilize some of what stands out to me is relatively empty parking structures to support the parking needs for the surrounding area, and then utilizing kind of a transit network through the U2C to provide that first and last mile connection from those parking garages?
Yeah, you mean you're talking about if utilizing the existing parking structures, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I think when we think about phasing, so what we've drawn here, we've kind of realized maybe a phase 1 and a phase 2 for those parcels immediately adjacent to the Rosa Parks station. What could happen is, before the vision continues to play out, what could happen is this parking garage could play a key role in really facilitating this facilitating and maybe even lessening the parking demand on this new development. And then in the future, when this block is built out, it would be built out with parking to ideally replace the existing parking structure. So that all goes into a phasing strategy. How can we think about the longer term? And yeah, I think there can be really smart ways to think about this garage or these existing garages. You could think of it as almost like I wouldn't say a park and ride, but I think, Zan, you talked about, can you come here, park, and then get onto the circulator, the U2C, and circulate through, to different destinations, be it, the Waterfront Park at Shipyards, or over to, shopping at JRTC, or up to Springfield for brunch. So I think what I will add to this is I will actually, before we leave Rosa Parks, I want to maybe build out this block here just really quickly. It's that idea of that new civic space, which is helping kind of anchor and create a central gathering place for this new development, and also our idea of there being some type of office hub or tech hub associated with the university or with health sciences. Oops. Erase some of my stuff there.
As Josh is drawing in these last features here, if there's any final thoughts you may have on, what you would envision for this area as sort of a, gateway between Springfield and downtown, please feel free to share those in the comments or add them to the map questions, and we'll be sure to, incorporate these into our framework development.
All right, great. Well, I think similar to Shipyards, should something come in, we can certainly come back to this and talk about it.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. So what we'll do is we'll move on from Rosa Parks, and we'll go on to our last station this evening, which is JRTC. So we save the best for last. But no, they're all great. But this is an exciting place because of what we're seeing here on the screen. having opened in March, and really will be the catalyst to transform this entire area. And I think it sets a fantastic example of how transportation agencies can be a role model, and also for economic revitalization and promoting smart and sustainable redevelopment and new development. So to talk about JRTC as it relates to the work we did leading up to our frameworks. We think the JRTC station is certainly a regional center. As we talked about before in our previous engagement, a regional center can be a place of employment. So think about a university, or think about like UF Health, place for healthcare, health providers. But in this case, we think it's a regional center because it really will be the epicenter and the hub for regional transportation for Jacksonville. And it's right now there today with, weaving together the Skyway, the existing Skyway, with the bus network, with more to come. Just some of the things that we observed, which makes us excited about this station. Similar to Rosa Parks, there's strong leadership to promote a TOD vision, and that comes from the JTA and also the DIA. There's also in this immediate station area, as you can see here on the right, this is a quarter-mile offset. There's a concentration of JTA and other publicly owned assets, in addition to vacant parcels. So when all that comes together, you have an opportunity to have more control over those initial, hopefully catalytic phases, and really kind of setting the tone for what could come in the future. There's also things going on in the La Villa neighborhood. In addition to JRTC, there's already a proven track record for multifamily development to occur and happening right now in the station area. So you have the lofts at Jefferson Station. You also have new developments further north of Adams. And what's great here is that it provides for, there's already a precedent for providing for a range of demographics and economic levels. So there's a mix of market rate housing with workforce housing, and we think that that mix is extremely important. Of course, all of this coming together to provide a really significant opportunity for transit-centric redevelopment. And all of this builds up to really leveraging what is happening now, and building upon that momentum to keep moving forward and realizing those early wins. Again, it always comes back to those catalytic projects and really kind of increasing that momentum. To talk about the framework here, and I know we've taken on a lot tonight, and I appreciate everyone who's still plugged in and listening. So we'll work our way through, and I'll promise not to talk for too long, but I really appreciate everyone still being plugged in and listening to our ideas for these frameworks. So to get onto that, our first layer for circulation, let me point out a couple of things that we're seeing here that we think can set the stage for a significant development opportunity in the station area. Kind of piggybacking on the conversation we're having about Union Street, on Bay Street and Forsyth, these are feeding into I-95, or they really facilitate that connection to I-95. So they're really important east-west streets. Is there a way that we can promote pedestrian safety and circulation? So those will continue to serve the role that they do now. And in fact, really connecting that connection to I-95 just from this JTA bus boarding zone and points westward. So B here, we think that Stewart Street, but then maybe, and what's what we found as we continue to develop our ideas for JRTC is both Johnson Street and Stewart Street, really providing a major north-south connection to circulate between JRTC, the Greyhound station, and the possibility for future rail in the future, or excuse me, future commuter rail, and that would be happening here to the south here. So really, this goes right to then why JRTC is a regional center, because it's a transportation hub for the entire Jacksonville region. And then also, should the convention center be located somewhere else? And there's a lot of conversation happening about the convention center and where a new one might be located. So should that happen, it does open up the opportunity to rethink what the land of the convention center is on now, the Prime Osborne, what that could be in the future. And we think it could be a walkable mixed-use neighborhood that is anchored by transit. How we facilitate that development is we would extend the existing grid down into or over that land that the Prime Osborne is, and then now. So we always look to the existing grid to see how we can realize new blocks for development. So it's not something that's foreign. It's something that fits in with the context, even down to a circulation level. Adding on our open space network or our green layer, just like we've talked about in our other stations, we want to incorporate complete streets to really reinforce the connectivity within the station area, but then also connections to adjacent neighborhoods. And we think, Park Street feeds right into Brooklyn, and there's Riverside Avenue, which is part of Brooklyn and Riverside, but we think Park Street, it's not so obvious, but it's really a critical key connection between La Villa and really the JRTC Union Station or Jacksonville Terminal area, all the way down to 5 Points, with Brooklyn and Riverside kind of falling right in between. So the whole host of complete street strategies plays into that connection and reinforcing that. Like we suggested at Rosa Parks and also Shipyards, we think that with any new development, there should be a new open space. And these can be all different. It's not like you were suggesting the same type of place everywhere. So for JRTC, we think that this is a civic plaza that really celebrates transportation, that really showcases the JRTC, but then also really brings Jacksonville Terminal and the legacy, the history of transportation in the neighborhood into the fold. And also, and as you'll see on the next slide, another gathering place for the new development that could take place in this station area. We also think that Lift Every Voice and Sing Park, that's really adjacent to the planned La Villa townhomes that have been approved by the DIA. How can we zoom out from our immediate JRTC Jacksonville Terminal station area and connect to other places within La Villa? So that certainly means understanding how our complete streets or our public realm allows people to explore and connect to places like Lift Every Voice Park, but then also continue to point northward along Lee Street and to those other assets that are a little further north for the La Villa neighborhood.
Josh, just to add, I think it's a great connection with the Emerald Trail Plan and their first kind of model mile that'll be connecting the La Villa neighborhood. So a good, strong trail network that'll help kind of add that pedestrian and bicycle feature, connecting both the neighborhoods of La Villa and Brooklyn and further on into kind of north downtown.
That's a great point, and it's a point that I was about ready to miss, because for this station, more than others, there's just a lot of opportunity to provide meaningful connections to different places. And there is planning work currently going on for McCoy's Creek. It'll come up in our framework discussion, but yeah, absolutely. How can you tap into that regional open space network? It really helps kind of land this area from a connectivity perspective. So bringing that all together, how does our circulation and open space network lay the foundation for a TOD framework? So we'll go through a couple of our main ideas here. So we do think that on the grounds of the existing Prime Osborne Convention Center, but the Jacksonville Terminal Head House, is something that absolutely stays. It would, we would never suggest that that goes away, but we really kind of allow it to take its former kind of glory as being really kind of the centerpiece for the area alongside the JRTC. But we think this is a new mixed-use center. We think that it's a neighborhood first, but then there's opportunities really leveraging the connection to transportation, be it future commuter rail or the U2C Skyway network or the bus stations or Greyhound. There's some mixed use, there's some restaurants, maybe there's some retail opportunities, and it's really here focused around that new kind of civic plaza that I was mentioning about earlier that really forms you can almost think of it as a living room that really has the new neighborhood as one side, Union Station as another side, and then the JRTC framing it to the north. And talking about Jacksonville Terminal or Union Station, reimagine it as a major regional destination and anchor, and also complementing the programs that we were putting forward for the station area. So, there's been examples of how cities have done this around the nation. I'm from Kansas City. They've tried to, they saved their Union Station. They turned it into a science museum. Wasn't so successful until they started programming small office spaces for city agencies, and then also having events coming in and out, like national events that are associated with our nation's museums. And now it's extremely successful, and I think it's a great success story. In the 80s, you had Union Stations turning into malls. I don't necessarily think that that's the best strategy, but could it be a food hall? Could it be a marketplace or bazaar? Could it be a new place for a farmer's market? There's a whole host of things that Union Station could become, but the takeaway here is that it's an important destination and then that it's an anchor. As I've already mentioned, create new blocks of mixed-use residential development on both different from the Prime Osborne site, but these sites just north and just east of the JRTC. These are sites that are in JTA ownership, so that we think that these should be also mixed use, but more residential. It's also really important to acknowledge what's being planned just to the north of it, the townhomes. So any development on these blocks should pay special attention to the transition and density. It can all coexist together, but it's just something that's important to point out and think about as we create the actual vision for the station area. And then just expanding a little bit further out, is there in maybe the longer term look, some of these surface level parking lots that are in private ownership? This is for this office complex here. Could that be a part of a larger station area redevelopment strategy? It's just something that we're flagging. It's certainly a soft site, but there's a lot of opportunity with between the Prime Osborne site and of course the JTA parcels to really put forward some realistic visions for what could happen in the future. So what does some of this stuff look like here? So we think that, so this is Lake Nona in Orlando. This is an example of an office and retail mixed use center. So maybe not office or maybe not a total retail destination, but what we like in this image is that it's generally a low rise district. You have a mix of 3, 4, 5-story buildings, but then maybe you have a single building that really acts as a signature building that kind of anchors the new mixed-use center. And you can see this building, this signature building, being then among the JRTC and the Union Station. So the new development has its representative kind of signature building that is among the other two really important buildings in the station area. But it doesn't have to be an entire swath of new towers. We don't think that's appropriate. La Villa is first and foremost a neighborhood, and we want to create a new neighborhood center here that's served by a regional transportation network. we saw this image for Rosa Parks. We're showing kind of activation of rooftops here. We think that's what's important because, you know, in this district, there's going to be garages within the new development. And so there are opportunities to create a public place, but then also more likely amenities for the new apartment buildings that will be going into the area. Continuing to, you know, just around the nation, what does some of this stuff look like? This is a very significant building. It's only 5 stories tall, has activated ground floors with retail in this case. And then this is a mixed use mid-rise development. So again, you can really create density and a sense of place. It doesn't always have to be, you know, a very high, super high density new development. The image on the right, this is from the Legacy development which is in Plano, Texas, so just north of Dallas. A large mixed-use development, but here the idea that maybe there's a pavilion or a single-use building that could hold events. Maybe it has a food hall. So again, it's just how we're thinking about that programming, giving different options for how this new area could be and really serve as an anchor for both the immediate area, but then also a destination for the city. Going back to that Civic Plaza or that living room for this station area, this is Civic Plaza in Denver Union Station. So it's, you know, if for those who are not familiar with what Denver has done with their Union Station area, I recommend just taking a tour on Google or taking a look on, or just literally Googling it. They've had a lot of good ideas that played out. And Denver Union Station really has all the same ingredients that the JRTC in the La Villa Station area will have. So if commuter rail does come, Denver has that mixing with their light rail, which you can then think of the U2C or the existing Skyway, and then of course a robust and multimodal kind of bus transit center. So there's a lot of similarities between the two. But here we just have, there's different ways to program this living room or this new civic place. You know, this has a water feature that people are engaging. So really just a warm and inviting and an active place really that's serving as the heart of the new development. Thinking about the public realm, you know, some of those corridors maybe connecting the future commuter rail to JRTC. Some of those streets in between, you can treat with these type of strategies where you have lights and trees, just really making it a warm, inviting, and intimate environment. So we've landed on our aerial of the JRTC. Before jumping into sketching, I'm going to go back to Zan and check in.
Yep. We haven't had any comments come in yet on the framework so far.
Okay.
So I'll take this opportunity to just urge our participants, if there's anything that you feel should be in the station area, let us know in the chat, and I will put Josh to work drawing it in. I did see a couple in the mapping questions. So we have a few, looks like on the kind of Prime Osborne area, grocery, looks like some residential and some restaurant or kind of retail. So if we can incorporate that, I think that would be great.
Yeah.
And I think it fits along with the ideas that you have for the area there.
Yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm, you know, since transportation is the key part of the storyline here at JRTC, and you really can't say it enough because it really is amazing what's really coming together. So what I've drawn out here is the stuff that we've talked about. So we have JRTC here. That's a fat pen. Let's see if I can bring that down a little bit. Then we have the Greyhound terminal. We have the future possible commuter rail, which would most likely be over in this part of the world. And then we have the Union Station head house, which would absolutely be hanging around for the new vision for the JRTC neighborhood. Now, whoops, just going to clarify this a little bit with this. So again, this is really the backbone. This is of the future of this neighborhood. Just kind of give these a quick outline. All right. And then we have some of the connections today. So we have our station. Then we have our existing Skyway, soon to be converted to U2C, heading to points east and most immediately to Jefferson Station, just to the east there. And then also, so what I'll do is just want to point out some of the major streets here and go back to going back to our circulation, what's the existing grid, how, that really is the organizing structure for really any neighborhood or any place. So we have Johnson Street here. We have Stewart Street here, which now just stops short or just north of JRTC. We have Forsyth, and then of course we have Bay, major east-west streets. And so then this is where I was showing in the framework, but I'll draw it in, for this to all act together kind of holistically as a regional transportation hub, you want all your elements connected. And so as they've done very well in Denver, they provide a wonderful, lively, active, healthy connection between their transportation assets. So I just dropped in a little jog. It jogs a little bit, but the idea of Johnson Street being continued through. And this can be pedestrian. It could have limited vehicles, but I think it's the idea that it's the right of way. So it's a public place, and it helps organize the area. So same thing with Stewart Street. Maybe Johnson Street's a little bit more in the priority or the hierarchy of connecting from JRTC over to commuter rail, but all that will reveal itself in the actual planning for things like this. So now you can kind of see, even if Prime Osborne does go and the older, this 1980s convention center piece, the add-on to the Jacksonville terminal goes away, then you can start laying out additional blocks in this area. And actually, it's quite a large, between the surface parking lot and the existing convention center. It's a huge space. Actually, it really does accommodate a lot of opportunity for new development, or for actually just a brand new neighborhood. So a couple of things here. So now we've kind of outlined our streets, and now I just want to point out, so we have our JTA block here. We have another one here. This one has a cool angle to it because of the Skyway. So that things like that can inform how the buildings behave, which is a nice, meaningful way to give some interest to the architecture of the buildings. You also have the townhomes blocks, which are being planned. And I just realized I forgot to drop in Park Street. That is a very important north-south street, as I talked about earlier, but I'll finish my thought. So these are the townhomes. So they occupy actually quite a large area of the station area. So let me drop in real quick, Park Street. And really important, this is to Brooklyn. So just playing out, we identified existing blocks where they are now. What are the blocks then that are created with what we've just drawn over on the Prime Osborne? So you have one between Stewart and that street, that new street to the west. You have one here, which is just across the street from the JRTC. And I do want to point out existing facade. Now, Zan, are you able to tell me what this was? Because it it's absolutely a part of our thinking about the station area, but this facade here.
Yeah, I believe that's part of the historic fabric of the original station. So
Got it.
located right there, there is one of the trains as well as one of the
Yep.
little towers there.
Okay, great. So as you can see here, whereas you have the convention center, now you have really a large opportunity to maybe over a phased approach, really lay out this new district. And again, you can see how this new district is sandwiched right in between JRTC and future commuter rail. And that's extremely significant. I think what I'll do is I'll just kind of dash these in. Oh, what I'll do actually is I want to drop in that living room. So, I think it's a great way to showcase that existing kind of artifact, or that the part of the fabric of the train station complex. So that's absolutely a part of the living room experience. And then maybe then we have an idea of a pavilion. Actually, that's a little larger than I like it. Something that really it would help give some options for things to do. Maybe it's small concerts, or a place to eat and kind of overlook and be kind of a part of this new space, kind of right in between JRTC and Union Station. I also think that it's really interesting where this middle street falls, and you can't see it here, but you do end up seeing the bridge, or for I-95, those arches, right at kind of central to that street. So it's yes, it's part of the highway, but this is a flat area, so down this corridor, it's really cool. You can it's kind of bookending with Union Station. And then I think just to kind of finish it out, how you add in your enhanced public realm. So as you can see, the green of the living room kind of continues downwards, where Stewart Street crosses through the JRTC block. Certainly that's pedestrian, and that's providing kind of the interface between the bus boarding. Oh, and you know what? That's something I didn't point out, the bus area here, which that is, it is a part of JRTC, but it's falling into just that whole the density of transportation options you have in this area. So, whoops, go back to here. So these complete streets connecting you up into La Villa, connecting you to the townhouses, connecting you to the new blocks of potential, or new blocks of development just adjacent to the JRTC. And then, of course, connecting you north and south along Park and Lee Street. So be it riding a scooter, whoops, oh, okay. A scooter or your bike, just knowing that there's a north-south connection providing some critical connectivity to adjacent areas. I think, Zan, if I were to do one more thing, I think I might just drop in some apartment buildings here. So be pretty quick.
That sounds good. Yep. And again, if you have any further thoughts after the presentation, feel free to add them to the map question below, or send comments through the chat box, or send an email via the website.
So maybe that's a 8-story little tower part that's along a base of, it's all apartment building, but Whoops. Give that some color. Maybe do one more. But then maybe one of these are maybe a little bit larger, and it's that signature building. So it's that example I was at Lake Nona I was talking about earlier, where it's the building that's the new development that is playing alongside the other significant buildings in the area. I don't think this will be too successful, and these blocks are a little larger than I'd like them to be, but I think everyone gets the point. Maybe this one has a courtyard, and it opens up to the commuter rail area. So maybe there's a green open space here. And just give this a little bit of color.
So I think it gives a great illustration of sort of a transit anchored neighborhood, right? So it provides the residential and possibly some of those essential services, all surrounding a highly multimodal regional transportation anchor.
Yep.
We don't have any more comments coming in, but again, if you have thoughts after, please feel free to reach out. With that, we're running a little bit over now, so we'll go ahead and move into just kind of what our next steps are briefly, and then we'll turn everybody loose, and we appreciate you all taking the time to build these frameworks with us. So we're continuing our public outreach tomorrow night at 5:30, where we'll be covering Kings Avenue, the district, and Brooklyn stations. From there, we'll move on to sort of our next steps, where we'll take the feedback we're receiving during these presentations and framework development and use that to refine or further refine our stationary frameworks for the 6 stations that we have begun to advance. Josh, can you jump to the next slide, please?
Oh, yeah.
So as we continue to do those, we'll build out these more robust frameworks, a little bit more detail, and incorporate a lot of the feedback that we've received from the public. And then with that, we'll host an open house, likely a virtual one, in November of 2020. That's this year, to kind of present the frameworks that we've come up with in regards to kind of our analysis from the existing conditions and highest and best use, as well as the public feedback we received. Next slide, please. And then so for further information about the project, feel free to visit our project website at U2C.TOD.JTAFLA.com. There you can find tons of resources about transit-oriented development. Under the TOD tab, there's videos showcasing some of the benefits of it. Within the corridors, you'll find all of the content we're developing as part of the project that will give you more information on the specific corridors. You'll have the opportunity to engage in our survey under the Engage tab, as well as find resources related to the U2C program, as well as just general transit-oriented development resources or resources from the project under the Resources tab. And then again, if you have any afterthoughts, feel free to reach out through the Contact tab. And it looks like it did get one other response in here. So let me do my best to read through this and see if we can tackle this.
Oh, I see it. I see it, yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so prioritization, I guess, Josh. So all of these are really great TOD opportunities, and we see the development potential throughout all of these neighborhoods in the urban core and downtown. But from your standpoint, is there any way you would try to prioritize them for development?
You mean among stations or within this, or within a
Yeah,
within
I
a
would say
given station?
amongst the stations that we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I think obvious, if we look at this map, or even going back to JRTC. Sorry, I'm flipping through these really quickly, but I think it goes back to where are the opportunities now, and opportunities can be a developer wanting to build something, but it can also be, well, who owns the land? Is the land available? What type of process needs to take place to create a collection or assemblage of land for even the developer or the development to occur? So that says to me that the those parcels that are held publicly provide a great opportunity to begin the work of kind of initial phases, or even hopefully being catalytic for to encourage TOD. So I think where we see that is at Rosa Parks Station. Now, granted, the station area is untested. At JRTC, it's things are happening. You have a number of things coming together, which really point to successful real implementation of a vision. So you have the JRTC, as we've talked about a lot tonight, but it's so important. And then you have actual new mixed use and primarily multifamily development occurring in the neighborhood, in the station area. And when you continue to increase your transit assets, if you do add in commuter rail to the storyline, all those things are really coming together to say that is absolutely a priority station. And
I think that
yeah.
just building on that, just the overall vision, supports a lot of the pipeline projects. We've considered, everything that we know is going on, and how we can incorporate and connect to projects like the Emerald Trail and the Elbow Entertainment District, and really creating a robust circulator system in and around our downtown will, make these locations more accessible to everybody.
Yeah,
So I
that's
think,
right.
no matter which one we move forward with first, it's contributing to a network that will provide greater benefits overall.
That's right. Well, I want to thank everyone for your time. Again, we covered a lot of ground tonight, so thank you for listening and hearing our ideas. Zan, any final thoughts?
Yep. No, I just want to echo your appreciation, and thank you all for participating. We really appreciate all your feedback, and we'll be sure to incorporate this great information into our framework development. Feel free to jump on our call tomorrow night at 5:30 for the remaining stations, and feel free to connect with us through email or the website for any further thoughts. And with that, I hope everybody stays safe, and we'll be hearing from you all soon.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.